Hey kids, I got a question for you. Do you know what a missionary is? A missionary is someone that tells other people about Jesus anywhere in the world. Real often, missionaries go to other countries to tell people about Jesus who maybe haven't heard about Jesus before. Well, my family were missionaries when I was a little kid, and I grew up in different countries, and my dad was a pastor and a Bible teacher, and sometimes he would do evangelistic meetings and people would come and they would hear about Jesus. Well, one of his students was going to hold an evangelistic meetings in the city close to where we lived, where in that section there was no Adventist. And my mom said, "Karen, would you like to be a missionary?" I said, "Oh yes, I've always wanted to be a missionary." She says, "Well, you've always been a missionary, but would you like to do something to help with some evangelistic meetings?" I said, "What can I do? I'm just a little kid. I'm, 5 years old? What can a 5-year-old do for evangelistic meetings except just smile at the people when they come in?" My mom said, "Well, they want you to play your violin and your brother play the piano, and sometimes you'll play together for like a half an hour before the meeting starts so that people will come out of curiosity to hear you guys play, because in this country, it's not real common that little kids play musical instruments." I said, "But Mommy, nobody's going to give their heart to Jesus just because I played my violin." And my mom said, "I wouldn't be so sure about that. Someday when you get to heaven, you're going to have to ask Jesus if anybody came just because you played violin and then gave their hearts to Jesus." And I said, well, I'd like to know before I got to heaven. And my mom said, "Well, maybe Jesus will show you before you get to heaven." So that day, Mommy brought out a dress for me to wear. Now, I didn't like this dress. It was an itchy green dress. Now, the green dress was okay, but it was itchy. I said, "Mommy, I don't want to wear that dress. It makes me want to scratch all over." And Mom said, "No, but it's your best dress, and you want to do your best, so you're going to wear that dress." Well, we went to the high school in the auditorium. I played my violin up on the stage. My brother played the piano, and lots of people came and they listened. And then the preacher got up and he preached. And we did that several nights in a row. Years went by. Finally, one day, as an adult, I was asked if I would like to take some teenagers and go to that country again and do some evangelism with the teenagers, where the teenagers would be preaching. And I would be helping to mentor them and guide them and teach them how to do evangelism. I said, that would be a lot of fun. I'd like to see where I used to live. And so we came right on the campus of the university where my dad used to teach. And that night when we got in the car and we went to the meetings, it was in a nice church. And I suddenly remembered the name of the town. I said, "I've been here before. Why have I been here before?" And then it dawned on me, that was the town where I used to play my violin for that evangelistic meetings. And I thought, I wonder if I will ever find out if playing the violin made any difference. Well, finally we got to the last Sabbath. Lots of people were getting baptized. It was a beautiful experience. And the head elder had invited our group over to his house for lunch. So after the baptisms and everything, we're eating at his house. And I said to him, "Tell me, were you raised an Adventist?" And he said, "Well, part of my life." He said, "You see, when I was about 12 years old," he said, "my grandparents were raising me and my brothers, and he said, we went to some evangelistic meetings." I said, "How old are you?" And he told me, and I started adding how old I was and how old he was, and I realized it could be the same meeting. And I said, "Was this meeting in a high school auditorium?" He said, "Yes, it was." He said, "There was 2 little kids. They were American or maybe they were German." He said, "Honestly, I don't know." But he said, "They came and they did music, and I liked to sing, and my brother liked to play the piano, and the other brother liked to play guitar. And so Grandpa had taken us with Grandma to the meetings, and we had sat on the front row so we could see the little kids play their instruments." He says, after about a half an hour of music, he said, they said it was time to start the meetings. And so he said, the pastor came up. He said, "My grandfather said, well, this is our chance to leave now. We saw the music. We're not really interested in what the pastor has to say." But he stood up and he looked around, and the auditorium was full of people, and it made the grandfather get embarrassed. He said, we can't leave now. That would be embarrassing. I'm sorry, kids, you're going to have to sit through a sermon. So he says, we sat back down and we listened. And you know, my grandfather and grandmother really liked what they heard. And at the end of those meetings, we started going every night. And at the end of those meetings, Grandpa and Grandma were baptized. And a few years later, me and my brothers got baptized too. My brothers and I also got baptized. And I said, really? And what did that little girl look like who was playing? And he said, well, strange thing is, I remember she was wearing a green dress and she had curly hair. And I said, wow. And suddenly the lights went on for him and he said, no way. Was that you? And I said, uh-huh, I think so. And I named off the high school, named off the town, and he said, it was you. And I started to cry. And he said, why are you crying? And I said, because I told my mommy nobody was going to become an Adventist and give their hearts to Jesus just because a little girl and little boy went and played their music. And she said, someday when we get to heaven, we would find out if somebody had become a Christian because they came for the music. I told her I wanted to know before I got to heaven. And now I'm meeting you. So see, boys and girls, you might think you're too young and that what you do doesn't matter. And you might have to wait until you're an adult to find out. But God can use you no matter how old you are. Never forget, you aren't too young. God needs you as a missionary.